Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist of Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Today's special guest is Catherine Monson, CEO of Propelled Brands and Chair of the International Franchise Association. Catherine brings 30 years of franchising and management experience to her leadership role that spans multiple brands. Catherine has been the CEO of FASTSIGNS International Incorporated, the leading sign and visual communications franchisor in North America since January 2009. In 2021, Catherine oversaw and announced the formation of Propelled Brands, the corporate umbrella that now includes FASTSIGNS, SIGNWAVE in Australia, where FASTSIGNS centers operate under the SIGNWAVE brand, NerdsToGo, an emerging IT service brand acquired in September 2020, and Suite Management Franchising, the parent company of My Salon Suite and Salon Plaza, acquired in June of 2021. Salon Management Franchising LLC is a leading concept in the salon suite industry. Now, today, we're doing something very special on the Franchise Woman podcast. We have specifically asked Catherine to join us today to talk about the 5 common characteristics of highly successful people. And the reason we've asked Catherine is many of you know that I have been studying franchisee performance for 30 years. This is what I do. And when we were talking to Catherine a few months ago, she had some very interesting perspectives on this, and her explanations were so spot on. I just had to share her message with our audience. So Catherine, we are so grateful that you are here to share the 5 attributes of highly successful people. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Tracy. I'm really thrilled to be here. I love the work that you guys do, and I love making a difference in people's lives.
Thank you for supporting the Franchise Woman. But before you get into your presentation, I gotta ask, why? What is it that made you step above and beyond what you're already doing to educate others on these attributes? What is your why?
Well, I'm going to start back in my childhood, and I'm not sure how many people know, but I grew up in an unhappy home. I had an abusive alcoholic mother, and a couple things can happen to you. You can either decide to be a victim and have a victim mentality because things weren't perfect for you in some part of your life, or you can make a decision to be a victor and be victorious. So while I suffered from some pretty significant depression in my 20s and got some great counseling and therapy along the way, what I realized out of all of that is the most powerful thing we can teach anyone is that they are in charge of their mind and their mindset. They can absolutely control the outcome. They can control their reactions. They can control, in other words, create happiness. And that's one of the foundations of the 5 common characteristics of all highly successful people. So my why is I had to learn it the hard way. And I happen to believe that the more I can share this message of these 5 common characteristics, they're all learned skills. The more I can share that with people, I'm making a difference in the world. I kind of feel like that's part of my purpose, is to share the wisdom I've learned so other people don't have to go through some decades of acting in a victim mentality, feeling sorry for themselves, feeling woe is me, being overly emotional and reactive to situations. That really we can have happier lives if we apply these basic fundamentals in our lives. That's my why.
Oh, I love this why. What do you think, Tracy? It's like knocking it out of the park for me.
I am so impressed with that why. What really struck me is the from victim to victor. And how many people this presentation is going to resonate with. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Catherine.
So
Well,
take it away, Catherine. We're so excited.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, because this is really what I'm passionate about. It's what I truly have come to believe is that there are, in fact, 5 common characteristics of highly successful people. Now, you're going to notice over my shoulder right there, you see the very same thing on the screen. That is not a prop for just today. That is always there, right? And I've even had friends in franchising ask for copies. So I have extra copies of that sign that I can send to people. Not that I necessarily have thousands of them, but since I'm in the sign making business, one of my brands, I can do that. So here's what I love about these 5 common characteristics of all highly successful people. They're all learned skills. I've had to learn them. And I try to work every day to get a little bit better in at least one of them, if not more than one. And so here's what they are. PMA, positive mental attitude, goal-directed behavior, GDB, self-motivation, a sense of urgency, and never stopping learning. So as I think about my own life, what I used to do is get down and depressed in my 20s and not feel good about myself. And I would start to do this thing called piling on. And I'd start thinking of all the reasons I don't have everything I want, right? I taught myself how to get depressed. Honest to God, I would pile on. And one of the things I learned through therapy is I'm responsible for my mindset, and I learned how to control that. And so that's part of that deal. But I think this positive mental attitude is foundational. I think it is the foundation of every great leader, of every great mother, of every great pastor, of every great politician. It doesn't matter. And that's what I love about these 5 common characteristics is they apply in any part of life. You want to be a great parent, you're going to have to develop a positive mental attitude. You're going to have goal-directed behavior on how to be a great parent, like the never stopping learning. You're going to read books and speak to other people to learn how to be an even better parent, right? So this works in anything, whether we're talking about franchising, being a franchise business owner, being a CEO of a franchisor, but it all starts with positive mental attitude. I truly believe with every cell in my being that this is absolutely foundational. I have been collecting quotes for years. I have scrapbooks of quotes. I have Microsoft Word documents, Google documents of quotes. I fill my mind with quotes because it's part of what I learned about how to control my mind. I want to control where my mind is being. So part of how do I keep my attitude up? How did I maintain a positive mindset through the last 19 months of the pandemic, right? I had to control my mind in order to be a great CEO, to be a great chair of the IFA, right? So it all comes down to this. So part of it is I fill my mind. One of my absolute beliefs is nobody will ever be any more successful than they see themselves being. So that's about visualization. So before I get on a stage for a speech, a couple hours before I go stand on it, I look, I see what the room is like. And then I go backstage and I visualize greatness in delivering remarks. If I'm going to do, I think about the very first time I did live television on behalf of FASTSIGNS. I was getting scared and weirded out and nervous. And one of my friends I was talking to said, Catherine, you teach us about visualization. What did you just forget? It was like, dang it, I forgot. And then I visualized calmness on the stage and having a great conversation with the TV host, right? So part of this is seeing yourself be successful. It's almost like doing mental rehearsals in your mind. So I'm a big believer that you've got to see yourself being successful. I also believe that attitude determines altitude. Nobody is going to want to follow me as a leader if I'm a negative Nelly, if I lack confidence, if I seem like I don't know what I'm doing, right? So that attitude of positive outcomes, understanding where we want to take the business, having a plan, having confidence in my ability to lead is very, very important. That positive attitude determines altitude no matter what we're doing. One of my favorite sayings, and I'll tell you that down here in our building here, we have this big long hall that we call Inspiration Hall. It's filled with about 180 quotes about positive mental attitude, perseverance, goal-directed behavior, grit, fortitude, everything, all of those things, right? My favorite in that entire hall is this one, and that is a diamond is a piece of coal that took stress really well. There's no question being a business owner is stressful. There's no question being a CEO is stressful. There's no question that being a volunteer chair of the IFA creates some stress in one's life. And so part of this positive mental attitude is me making the decision that I want to be a diamond. I can get pissed off and be emotional and act immaturely when I'm stressed, or I can say, hey, see myself being successful, see myself being a diamond, take this stress really, really well. Now, am I perfect? No, absolutely not. But I work to get closer to being very successful at this each and every day. I really love the quote, a negative mind will never get you a positive life. And this all comes down to controlling the mind. So every morning I think about everything I have to be grateful for. I keep a gratitude journal. Gratitude is one of the best ways to shift your mindset from the negative to the positive, right? And so if I catch myself thinking negative thoughts, it is my job to say to myself, stop, and then fill that void, if I kick the negative out, with positive. And the more we think about positive, the more gratitude we have, the more appreciative we are of our many blessings, even though we don't have everything we want, the more appreciative and more gratitude we have. It is impossible to have a negative thought and a positive thought in the mind at the same time. So if we put those positive thoughts in our mind, the great news is we become positive. And there's something about acting, right? Sometimes just the acting positive, the smiling when you really don't feel like smiling, can have a really positive difference on your mindset, And I love Henry Ford's quote, whether you believe you can do a thing or not, you're right. So we get back to this visualization. I've got to visualize success, so no matter what it is, right? In the new experience I've never had before, I got to visualize success. If I visualize failure, that means I believe I can't do it. I'm going to have a really difficult time actually then succeeding. Earl Nightingale said, stay positive. You become what you think about. That's that very same thing. You got to think about the positives. You got to think about the gratitude. You got to think about the appreciation. Another quote we have here in Inspiration Hall is, a happy person is not a person in a certain set of circumstances, but rather a person with a certain set of attitudes. So let's just talk about people that I know in my life that might have a less than ideal life, but still have a positive attitude. My baby brother, when he was 16, broke his neck and became a quadriplegic. He was in a rehab hospital for 6 months, sharing a room with another guy that broke his neck about the same time. And I saw my brother work every day to have a positive attitude to get the most out of rehab, which just basically meant he's still going to be paralyzed, but you got to be able to move your hands to hold, your silverware and those kinds of things. And in the bed next to him was a guy that was so angry, and the whole 6 months, it was just negativity. Now, do I want to have a broken neck and have to figure out how to have a positive mental attitude while paralyzed? No, I don't. But I've seen that in my brother, and I see my sister in Wisconsin who was given 3 to 5 years to live 7 years ago. She's still alive and doing great. She's in a clinical trial now, but every day she works to have a positive outlook. Now, does that work every day? No, there are some days she's crying because she's scared, and the cancer might be bringing it's coming back. I mean, all those things. But if she works very hard to have that positive attitude, that set of attitudes, she's going to be happier and her life will be better. What you focus on is what you'll get. And so focusing on having that positive mindset, developing that positive mindset will help you get that. And I'm a big believer that my response is my responsibility. And particularly for anyone in a leadership role, if you get overly emotional, if you act out of control, no one's going to have confidence to follow you, right? So having that responsive, holding stuff in, learning how to breathe, not being irrational, not being overly emotional is really important to your success as a leader. And I'm a huge believer that attitudes are truly contagious. So I want to ask myself every day, is mine worth catching? I'm going to be honest with you girls. I hate morning. I've never met a morning I like. Every morning I wake up and I feel like, well, we're not going to use bad language. I don't feel great. Physically, it takes me a good hour to an hour and a half to become what I call human. I'm even telling it, keep going, Catherine. You got this. You got this. I'm drinking my milky tea. But before I start my workday, whether that's in front of a Zoom camera in my home, often here in the office, I got to make sure that my attitude is worth catching, because if it's not, the negative attitude is going to be caught by everybody on my team. I'm also a big believer you should never, ever, ever, ever say anything about yourself that you don't want to come true. So when I hear somebody say, I'm really bad remembering names, they've just programmed their subconscious to be really bad at remembering names. It would be far more effective to say, I'm great at remembering names. Your mind will get you better at remembering names if you say that. So you should never say anything like, I'm fat, I don't eat well, I don't exercise. You've got to find ways to use positive language to program your subconscious. And so I'm a big lover of all things Zig Ziglar. And one of the things that Zig says is the evidence is conclusive that your self-talk has a direct bearing on your performance. That's the same thing we just talked about before. Don't say anything about yourself in a negative way. I don't know if I can be successful on this project. I don't know if I'm good enough for this job interview. I don't know if I deserve this promotion. No. You need to have a positive self-talk. I got a whole bunch of positive self-talk that I give myself. It might vary based on the challenge I might be facing that day. But this self-talk, these positive affirmations are really, really powerful. And then Bill Walsh said, what matters most is what you expect from yourself. So have those really high expectations. The people who do the best are those that expect the most. Again, positive outlook, seeing ourselves being successful, affirmations, positive self-talk. Those people that expect the most of themselves are going to get more out of themselves. It's those personal internalized standards that make all the difference in what we achieve and our happiness in our life. And again, another thing, I'm a huge lover of all things Zig Ziglar. And he says, people often say motivation doesn't last. Neither does bathing. And that's why we recommend both daily. So literally, I have signed up for every positive quote of the day I can get. Some days I get 10 of them. Some days I get 2 of them. Sometimes my spam filter decides to put them in spam and I got to go through my spam folder and say, that's not spam. I've got books of quotes, right? I can walk down Inspiration Hall, but it is my job every single day to take a bath, put on deodorant, maybe some perfume, but also to make sure that I'm motivated and I have a positive mindset. So I truly believe that the foundation of every successful person is a positive mindset, a growth mindset, positive mental attitude. You know, some people say that this is, like happy horse shit. I don't think it's happy horse shit, because if you go back and read, Greek philosophers talk about this, Buddhist philosophers talk about this. This whole thing about controlling the mind and having a positive outlook has been around for centuries because it is actual truth. The scary thing is we don't teach this to folks. We don't teach children, which we should be teaching, about how to manage their mindset. We're not teaching college kids about managing a positive mindset. And if we did, the world would be a better place, which is why every time I have the opportunity to talk about these 5 common characteristics with high school kids, elementary school kids, college kids, anybody, I will and I do. So I think positive mental attitude is the single foundation. I am going to go back to one thing I am going to say. I think there's one thing in our lives where telling somebody to get a positive attitude is not the right deal. And that is in times of grief, right? If you have a friend who has lost their soulmate, their husband, their wife, their child, this is the one area where I would say it is not our job to talk to those folks about creating a positive mental attitude. I think in that one case, it is our job to be givers of love and givers of support. In all other things, I would say it's our job to teach people how to have a positive mental attitude. But the one area where I would say I've been taught that my role is love and support is in areas of grief. So that's just the one caveat I have on positive mental attitude. Is I think the worst thing we could ever do to somebody who is grieving the loss of somebody they love, it would not be to tell them that, buck up and have a positive mental attitude. So that's my one caveat on positive mental attitude. So the second common characteristic of all highly successful people is goal-directed behavior. It's knowing where you want to go. It's writing them down. It's having written goals. It's why in all of our brands, we want our franchisees to have a business plan. A business plan is nothing more than goals written down on paper. And then once you write them down on paper, you look at them again and again and again. So all high achievers plan their work and work their plan. I have pieces of paper on my bathroom mirror when there's nobody coming over for dinner. They're on my refrigerator. I've got, goals, and they're there and they're in front of me. Now, sometimes it's best not for other people to know what your goals are, but when you want to share your goals with people you love and support so they hold you accountable to them, you can. So as an example, I first came to FASTSIGNS International in January 2009. And when I'm first in front of all the team in December of 2008, I said, ask me any question you want, right? This is about getting to know the team. And one of the people said, so, how do you stay fit? And I said, well, I try to exercise all the time and I live a low carbohydrate lifestyle, right? That's a goal. I live a low carbohydrate lifestyle. So 4 weeks into my job, I'm at a digital sign show in Las Vegas. I'm now the CEO of FASTSIGNS, 4 weeks on the job, and I'm supposed to be an expert in digital signs. I was a bit nervous. So as I was at dinner with, my VP, senior VP of marketing, and our person in charge of digital signs, I reached for the bread in the bread basket. And what I so respected about Drew Townsend, my senior vice president of marketing, is she said, do you really want that bread? And see, that was a time where I had shared my goals. I live a low carbohydrate lifestyle, right? I've said something positive about myself, because when I eat carbs, I just go whoop and balloon right up. That's when you share your goals. Like if you're quitting smoking, you want to tell your friends and your family you're quitting smoking so that when you have a weak moment, they can hold you accountable. But anyway, plan your work and work your plan. I think that's very important. And, Tony Robbins, who teaches people how to be successful, he talks a lot about positive mindset. He talks about visualization, but he also talks about having goals, because people with goals succeed because they know where they're going. They're working towards those goals every single day. And Bill Copeland said the trouble with not having a goal is that you can spend your life running up and down the field and never score. It's like if you don't have goals, you can keep rowing the boat, but you might be going in circles and not achieving anything. And that's why the goals are so very, very important. And thinking about how these truths have existed for centuries, right? Michelangelo wrote, the great danger for most of us lies in not setting our aim too high and falling short, but setting our aim low and achieving our mark. Is why I want every one of the people I love to have big, hairy, audacious goals. It's why I want to have big, hairy, audacious goals. It's why I want my franchisees, the franchisees outside salespeople, to have big, hairy, audacious goals. So we want to achieve this much, right? We don't get there, but we achieve this much. That's a lot better than thinking I'm not going to be very, very successful. So that's what it is. These 5 common characteristics of highly successful people have been true for centuries and centuries, even back when Michelangelo was painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. If you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to end up someplace else, right? It's like you wouldn't take a road trip today without GPS, or you wouldn't in the olden days have the AAA triptych where that map where you'd see where you were going, right? Because you might end up on the wrong side of the United States otherwise if you were on a road trip. One way to keep momentum is to have constantly greater goals. And so what I try to do is have long-term goals, short-term goals. When I achieve one of them, create a new one, make it a bigger and hairier, more audacious goal, but that's just part of the success of goal-directed behavior. So I think everybody ought to have goals. You ought to be looking at them every day. That's why I have goals on my bathroom mirror. I'm putting on makeup. What am I doing? I'm programming my mind while I look at those goals. So then the third common characteristic of all highly successful people is self-motivation. And the thing about, you don't have to be 10 times better than your competition, your competitors for a promotion, your competitors in the marketplace. You just have to be a little bit better, right? And that self-motivation is doing a little tiny bit more each and every day. I had the opportunity to know Jenny Craig personally. She had developed a chain of franchise chain of weight loss centers, and I had the opportunity to get to know her personally. She lived in San Diego, California. I lived in Orange County, California. And one of the things that she said, which is so true, is it's not what you do once in a while, it's what you do day in and day out that makes a difference. Like if I want to lose weight, I could starve myself and fast for 3 days, but that's probably not going to help in the long run if I'm eating candy and cookies and cake every day, right? So it's those little actions that you do every single day. It's starting that day with a positive quote, thinking about gratitude, right? It's day in and day out that makes the difference. And Thomas Jefferson, who has like 1,000 quotes to live by, and I'm the biggest fan of Thomas Jefferson. And again, what does this say? These truths have lasted the decades and the centuries, right? Thomas Jefferson said, I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more of it I have, right? So that's self-motivation. It's sending one more thank you card. It's making one more quote follow-up call. It's walking around the building at the end of the day and praising an employee that you've caught doing something right. You don't just stop because it's 5 o'clock. You do a little bit more each and every day. That's that self-motivation. And one of my very favorite sayings is you can't achieve $1 million dream with a minimum wage work ethic. In other words, if you have $1 million dream, like Jimmy John did in founding Jimmy John's, you work really, really hard. You don't work on a minimum wage work ethic. And this is all about that self-motivation. It's about motivating yourself to do a little bit more every day. One more thing, 2 more things, making a difference, whatever it is. But we learn self-motivation, just like we learn how to develop a positive mindset. We learn how to set and achieve goals. We need to learn how to keep this self-motivation going. Sometimes I find mine by giving myself a pep talk. You can do this. You can go 5 more minutes and get this done, right? You can make a difference. And Sam Levinson said, don't watch the clock. Do what it does, keep going, right? It's perseverance, it's fortitude, it's grit, it's self-motivation. It's not getting discouraged because you don't achieve your goal in a day, a week, or a month, right? It's keeping going like the clock does. And Walt Disney said, the way to get started is to stop talking and start doing, taking action. I think that's one of the most powerful things. What I've seen really magnified during the pandemic is people being so worried and scared that they don't do anything, and they spend their time worrying about things they cannot control rather than doing things they can control and make a difference. And then, one of the wisest beings of all time is Yoda, the Jedi Master from Star Wars. And one of the things that I love from Yoda, one of his pieces of wisdom, and this is also right on the wall in Inspiration Hall, is when Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. Now, I don't do a Yoda impersonation very well. I probably need to have ears out to the side. But it's like, when I'm talking to one of my FASTSIGNS franchisees about how to run their business a little bit better, I talk about, do you have a daily production meeting? Well, I try to have a daily production meeting. I don't know how one tries to have a daily production meeting. You either have a daily production meeting with your staff for 15 minutes every morning, or you don't have it, right? So that's Yoda's wisdom to all of us, which is do or do not. There is no try. Then we get to the 4th common characteristic of all highly successful people, and that is a sense of urgency. There are some people I drive crazy because I want to achieve all these things. I want my company to achieve all these things. I want my brands to achieve all these things, and I want it fast, right? You might say that's impatience. Maybe it is. No one has ever said, boy, that Catherine, she's really patient. No one has ever said that, right? But I want to get things done, and I want to get them done with a sense of urgency. And I think this is another self-taught skill. Do not put off to tomorrow what you can do today, right? That's all about. And look there you go. Do not put off until tomorrow what you can do today. I got one of my, this morning early, I'm checking email before I'm, getting my hair blown out and my makeup on, right? And one of the positive quotes came, and it was something along the lines of, the problem with putting off something to tomorrow is then it becomes today. And that's the same thing, right? Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. Spend 10 more minutes, 20 more minutes, 30 more minutes, get something done. Keep pushing forward again and again. Gary Solomon is the founder of FASTSIGNS International. I have the blessing to have been leading FASTSIGNS since Gary retired in 2009. And what a blessing that he built something from nothing to about 500 locations, right? I get to carry on that. But his saying is the universe rewards action, right? We go back to that Disney quote, right? It's how do you want to get something done? Stop talking about it, start doing it. It's all about action and us taking action to achieve our goals, figuring out what those little daily steps are to get it done and get it achieved, and then taking action. And then the fifth common characteristic of all highly successful people is never stop learning. The world changes. We need to continue to grow. And one of the things that I believe is, I'm so excited about Propelled Brands. We're at 3 brands now, 3 different companies. We just put an offer last Friday on a 4th really great B2B franchisor. Fingers crossed that we're successful in getting that across the line. But I've got to keep learning as a CEO, because running a multi-brand business is different than running a single brand business. We're going to have lots and lots of opportunity for our team members to grow and get promotions. In fact, just in the last handful of weeks, we've promoted 5 people within our organization, 1 to brand president of NerdsToGo, others higher positions of responsibility in our franchise support for FASTSIGNS. They all need to grow and learn to do more. They've got to continue to, like I need to continue, improve my leadership skills, improve my public speaking skills, improve my knowledge of different industries, better understand the use of technology, all these kinds of things, right? It's our job to keep making ourselves better. Bill Brooks said, become a student of success, study successful people, winning organizations, championship teams, and implement what you learn from them. So I've read about Kobe Bryant. I've read about Michael Jackson, 2 amazing basketball superstars. What did they do? In the off season, they made sure they taught themselves a new move, a different way to dribble, another way to shoot a basket. So they're always perfecting their game. They didn't say, oh, it's the off season. I'm going to go down to, the south of France, hang out for several weeks. No, it was like, how do I make my skills better, right? So when we look at those highly successful people, imitate what they do, which is a lot of getting better, improving our skills. Sometimes that's book learning skills. Sometimes it's watching TED Talks. Sometimes it's working out in the gym, perfecting our basketball throw, right? But then practice what you see in your own life. I'm a huge believer in this. And the only thing I would change is now that we have TED Talks and lots of great videos and podcasts, but the thought process is leaders are readers. Consistently high performance is driven by continuous improvement. So that used to be you'd read books, right? Or you'd have a mentor, but now you can listen to great podcasts like this one, and you can watch TED Talks, whatever you can to increase your knowledge and continually improve your performance. So that in a nutshell is what I truly believe with every single cell in my being. Every cell believe the 5 common characteristics of all highly successful people. Absolutely, they can be learned. I learned how to change from a negative victim mindset to a positive victor mindset. It is training. It is discipline. Just like getting ready to run a 5K takes some discipline. If you've never run before, you walk and you run a little bit. You walk some more, you run a little bit more. You walk some more, you run a little bit more, right? That discipline to get ready for a race is the same discipline you use to teach your mind to have a positive mindset. Practicing things like a gratitude journal, practicing things like telling people you appreciate them, the joy that occurs inside you when you see that you've delivered joy to somebody else, when you share your appreciation. That's all discipline. Creating a positive mindset is discipline. Goal-directed behavior, making sure you have goals, you write them down, you do a little bit every single day to fulfill a goal. You don't train for a marathon in a day, you build up to it slowly, but that goal-directed behavior, breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces, doing something every day to achieve your goals, that's self-motivation. that getting yourself excited and moving forward to achieve what you want to achieve. That sense of urgency, not putting off to tomorrow what you can do today, and never stopping learning. That is what it's all about. So this is my passion. I've learned that this works for me. I work every day to get better in all or part or one or two of these, right? Because I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to contribute. And I want to help other people learn how to do this too, so they can have a happier life. The bottom line is you're going to have a happier life, whether it's to be the happiest mother or parent or pastor or franchisee, right? It's working on these things. So I tell you, Rebecca and Tracy, this has been fun. Nothing makes me happier than get to talk about what I'm passionate about. And so you've just given me the wonderful gift of doing just that.
And that, Catherine, is why we call this where passion and purpose collide, because you just showed us how your passion has collided with your desire to make a difference in other people's lives and see that they too are more fulfilled, more successful by practicing these 5 things. So I know you're pushed for time, but I got to acknowledge a couple of wonderful things that you said. One, you talked about the positive attitude, and there's an application in 99% of our lives in that, except for one tiny little area, and that is when someone is grieving. And it reminded me of a scripture that talks about we are asked to mourn with those who mourn. We are not to pump them up and tell them all the blessings that are going to come out. We are called to mourn with those who are mourning. And if we love one another, that's exactly what we want to do. So I really want to acknowledge the caveat that positive mental attitude is so important. And there's this one area where we want to think differently. The other thing.
Can I add on that for just a minute?
Oh, please do, Catherine.
The power of love. I'm going to get choked up. I'm going to try not to get choked up. The power of love that we can deliver to the lives of those we care about when they're in grief is powerful. It's very easy and comfortable for people to send a condolence card, but it's the cards of love and support that come for the next months and years that make the biggest impact, because everybody pours out their love to that person who's lost somebody in the first month. But that person is sitting in their grief for months and longer. And the simple thing of texting love and encouragement to people who need it, and remembering to do that for a long time, ongoing, is powerful. And the kind of impact we can have on the world by being loving and putting our arms around those who are grieving and lifting them up in prayer and being with them and spending time with them. I think it's one of the most important things we can do as people.
Absolutely. Love conquers all, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day and we're not coming from that heart space. I was moved by that too. And I just lost my mom and my stepmother this last year. So I can feel, and I know you've lost someone you care very deeply about also not too long ago. So the other thing that was kind of just amazing to me about an attribute, because I'm a scientist, this is what I study, is this thing around urgency. And I think many of us live for the tomorrows, and we live for some days, and we don't see that today we have so many minutes, so many hours, so many moments that we're interacting with people. And each of those precious moments, if used wisely, will create the future that we want. But it is a mental urgency that we have to put on that says this moment is precious, and once spent is expensive if not spent wisely. And I don't think all of us have that urgency. We have procrastination sides of us and I don't wanna sides of us. So I'm taking copious notes. I hope everybody else is taking copious notes. So I love that. I love that point also, as well as others. So again, Catherine, we so appreciate you taking this time and your heart for wanting to help others. And we completely agree with these 5 attributes. I hope each of you that are listening take one a day. I read Ben Franklin's biography, and he talked about working on a single virtue every single day. And he would cycle through those virtues until he got better and better and better each year. And I think, Catherine, that's what you're suggesting too. Take these 5 characteristics, work on them every day, focus on one, and then focus on the next and focus on the next. Pretty soon you will have mastered all 5 of these areas. Catherine, do you have any final words of wisdom for us, like you haven't already given us, like an encyclopedia?
Just thank you. I mean, I've had just so much fun talking about what I'm passionate about with you guys just now. I mean, Rebecca and Tracy, I welcome and savor and really treasure this opportunity.
Beautiful. Tracy, any final words from you, hon?
I just want to share the fact that you and I just both had front row seats to a world-class keynote presentation. This was outstanding. And the interesting part is that it's not like we haven't heard many of these quotes before. It's the packaging, it's the delivery, it's the presentation. And I want to thank you, Catherine, because I was on mute, but you made me laugh, you made me cry, and you made me laugh again. So thank you so much for just bringing these 5 common characteristics and sharing, and for being who you are, because I can see how you've promoted 5 people in, I believe it was the past month, week, whatever it was. I can see how you develop leaders. So thank you for being here with us. And thank you so much for taking your time and sharing with us.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. Take care.
So thank you again, Catherine. Anybody wants to get hold of you, wants to learn more about these 5 common characteristics, tell us how we might get hold of you, Catherine.
So on one hand, there's always email,
Yeah.
Catherine.monson@propelledbrands.com. It's just if 10,000 people send me emails, it's hard to keep up, right? But that's one way. I also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Catherine Monson, and it has about, I don't know, 40 or 50 motivational videos that I created, some for my franchisees, some for the International Franchise Association during the pandemic. And very much we're talking about, how do you develop a mindset? How do you focus on taking action on the things you can control rather than worrying about the things you can't control? When many of your listeners are in franchising, looking forward to the IFA convention coming up in San Diego, the last 2 days of February and the first day of March 2022. And I'll be there and look forward to talking to people then as well.
Perfect. Thanks again, Catherine. So thank you everyone for joining us today on the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We'll see you next week for another edition.